Good evening, everyone. Being 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. We now move into our question period. I ask people asking questions to identify themselves. Are there any? Oops. Step up to the microphone there, please.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors. My name is Donnie Guthrow. I live on Pond Shore Road, and I'm here about the concerns we have about the speed of a lot of the traffic on that road. I brought this same issue to council about 10 years ago, and I think at the time the only visible result that happened because of that, excuse me, because of that was the removal of the signs, the Blind Hill signs, and I think other signs, and I was told it was because they weren't politically correct anymore, so we have no signage there at all. We have a number of children who now live between Uphill Drive and Mount View Road. There's 18 of them actually, and they catch the bus in the morning. Of course, they're out playing as well, and we have very grave concerns about their safety because of the speed of traffic. We're here tonight, first of all, looking for your support in getting this issue resolved so that that area is much safer for our children. And we're asking basically how we should approach this in the best way. There's a lot of issues that make that stretch of road very unsafe. There's that guardrail that extends from the bridge 0.8 kilometers up that road, which gives no shoulder of the road for walking, especially this time of the year when there's plows. We have a lot of runners there, especially in the summer, bikers, and other pedestrians as well. And what we want to do is we want to approach this in the right way, but we're asking for your support and your help in getting this ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's 2008 we passed a motion to asked TTI to lower the speed limit. We can't do it on that because it's a provincial highway. And they, for some obscure reason, said they wouldn't. We've also asked them to lower the speed limit on Queens Road in front of the school, and they won't do that either. What we can do, I would suggest, if a councillor wants to make a motion under new business, we can just make a motion to write DTI again and plead the case. So if some councillor wishes to do that, I'll entertain a motion under new business. I'd also suggest you contact our MLA, because she would have direct contact with the provincial authorities, and see if she can plead your case as well.
Okay, so the town doesn't have control, or certainly they can lobby though?
Oh yeah, we can lobby, yeah, and we would do that. But we can't unilaterally lower the limit.
Yeah, what about the signage there? Is the town in control of the signage?
Nope. We're not in control of the signage. We don't plow it. We don't fix it. It's a provincial road, and it's their jurisdiction. But we will, do everything we can.
Okay.
Can you clarify where it becomes the provincial road? Because we saw signs all the way into town that it was the Highway 940.
Yeah, it's a provincial road right up Main Street, right just out here. There's two highways in town, 106 going toward Dorchester, which is Bridge, Main, and then from Main out past the Anglican Church and out to the town limits is provincial.
As you're aware, there was a very serious accident there on the 23rd of December, and we fear that it's going to be it's going to be a tragic accident that occurs if something is not done, and we want to make sure that this happens, but we want to approach it in the right direction.
Yeah, and I live out that way, and I fully understand your concerns. I've not seen people doing the limit in front of my house in a very long time.
The town must have control over the police. Can you ask the police?
We can ask the police. I think control over the police
No,
might be a bit of
well,
a,
yeah. Well, you employ them, do you not, or?
oh, we have a contract with them, yes.
And we did.
But yeah, we can ask for more surveillance out there and speed traps.
Yeah, I mean, we can change the speed limit all we like, but it's probably not going to slow the drivers unless something happens, like them passing out tickets. And we'd like to see certainly more police patrols out there and speed traps set
Well,
up.
we can certainly ask them to do that.
Yeah.
Councillor Evans?
No,
Okay.
I wanted to ask, are you asking us to lobby to lower the speed limit or to enforce the speed limit?
I think, yeah, if we were given the opportunity to put a proposal in, I think there are basically three things that we would like. First of all, we would like the speed limit lowered to 50 within the town boundaries. We would like proper signage put up, and we would like the area patrolled. Yeah.
The signage would include blind hill, hidden driveways, and bus stops.
Yeah, well, one question at a time, please. Yeah, so we can, if someone wishes to make a motion including those, we can by all means entertain it. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Tower?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I don't know how you want to proceed with, I would like to have a motion under new business. And I would like to also expand it, not just the DTI, but for us to also approach our MLA, because the last time I went to Fredericton with George Woodburn, I think it was that time, to get them to lower the speed limit. They did a study of the speed in that area, and it showed that it was in excess of 85 kilometers an hour, and they said they couldn't lower it because people are too used to doing a speed already, and it'd be dangerous for the public. So I think we should do something under new business, and with the MLA willing to work on our part, I think we might make some headway.
Am I hearing a volunteer to write a motion? Yes.
Hi, my name is Bill Hurdle, and I grew up in the town of Peace River and recently returned after 40 years away. I'm a CPA and have been involved in municipal auditing for the last 40 years and have taken a lot of interest in politics over the years. I refer back to the mayor's comments at the meeting on November the 12th. I take exception to his comments, and I want to know what the basis of his comments were. Any research that I have done on his comments lead me to believe that if there's somebody's fabricating the truth, it's politicians have a way of saying what they want to say without putting the whole truth down, but certainly when you look at the cost of the land, yes, the cost of the land may have been $330,000, but yes, the total cost to the taxpayer will be over $1 million. When you look at my father-in-law's conversation with your consultant, what is rude to one person may not be rude to another person. I'm not saying Mr. Burke meant to be rude, but in Merlin's opinion, he was interrupting a private conversation, and in that regard he took it to be rude, so it's certainly not a fabrication of the truth. And when it comes to the DTI, I mean, I don't have a lot of the facts on that, but the mayor did admit at the last meeting that there was another drawing, that whether it was the most efficient and cost-effective is that's for you guys to decide. but there was another drawing available, so to say that that was fabricated is, to me, is a total fabrication as well. So I would like to know what the basis of his statements are, and will the mayor now apologize for calling, for concerned citizens fabricators of the truth?
Well, I'm not in a position to speak for the mayor himself. We do have a meeting set up with all the principals involved in February. That will, I'm sure, we'll try our best to explain what went on, our view of things. As far as the DTI plans and proposals, DTI has told us point blank that they had no other plans for the area out here other than ditching and abateau replacement.
There was another drawing last meeting.
Well, you'll have to take that up with the mayor. Okay,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Are there any more questions?
Hi, my name's Jordy Miller. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my partner as well. We were walking home on Friday, and we noticed that the flags in the Bill Johnson Memorial Park weren't at half-mast, and we wondered why, in light of the 57 Canadians who died in the Ukrainian Air Flight 752 of the 176 victims, the largest mass tragedy in the 21st century of Canadians. And we're just wondering about the council's decision to not instruct that the flags be at half-mast. I know my sister, for instance, who lives in Toronto, lost one of her co-workers, and my brother, who's a town councillor in St. Catharines, where none of the victims happened to live, the flags in his city were at half-mast as well. So I was just curious about the decision not to have them at half-mast. Or
Council this is our first meeting since
right.
Christmas, so we've not entertained anything on that.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Becky?
Thank you for your question. The town has a flag policy that we abide by. So the Government of Canada issued a half-masting notification on Friday for the Peace Tower only. After that, it was amended to include all federal government buildings. So what we did, the clerk's office called the New Brunswick Protocols Office. We talked to the chief director there, and they did notify us that municipal and provincial governments were not to fly their flags at half-mast. They were not provided a notification by the Canadian government, which is where we get our protocols from.
I just noticed, sorry, and I know you guys are going to, I think you're going to discuss the flag protocol tonight, but I think the 6th or 7th item on the list is that they're able to be lowered to half-mast at the discretion of the mayor, the CAO, or the town council. So I know it's going to shake out, but it's just a curious choice, in my opinion, but that's why I wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions.
At the last council meeting, the mayor said that we could view these tapes and had a date set for the 7th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think it was on Friday that Ms. Beal called and said the mayor said he's going to be away for a month. He wasn't able to view it. Well, the mayor don't have to be there to view it, but I wish he was. But the other thing was that at 12:30 on Tuesday, the 7th, the mayor was here in the building. So only another hour and a half, and he could have showed the pictures. And I'm wondering why. And he was here again on Thursday. So it's not a case of him being away for the month. That's a falsehood.
Well, I can tell you he's away now until into February.
He's away now,
Yeah.
he told me.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, Jesus.
as well keep it going. At the last
Can
meeting.
you identify yourself, please?
Jan Hurdle. Recently moved back to Sackville and trying to get caught up on how things work as opposed to how they do in northern Alberta. Just noticing in some of the reports at the last meeting, the suggestion that we be paying $90,000 to get the use of Mount A's IT tech. And I just wonder why that is even being considered. Like, I may be missing something, and that's fine. But having lived with accountants and raised accountants and everything, I am pretty sure you could probably have your own full-time IT tech on site for $60,000. Provide employment for another tax-paying citizen, and have $30,000 left over maybe to provide a crossing guard, which would allow for greater safety for Mount A students who seem to have forgotten to look both ways before they step into traffic, as well as allowing for traffic to get through around lunch hours.
Okay, well, there's several points there.
There is, but I'm just questioning.
The IT.
Am I understanding that that is actually a consideration, and I guess if it is, why?
I think I'll refer that to either Michael or Phil.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Either one.
Go ahead.
I guess the contract was let out to Mount A in and around 2014. At that time, the town's was on its system was not integrated whatsoever. It was in bad need of a new server that was on its last legs more than once, and so what we reached out and looked for was someone to provide complete IT services, not just one individual that could have expertise in one area, but we needed help right across the board, from equipment right on down to software to different systems, et cetera, as well as a help desk from day to day. And so in the discussions with IT, that was the arrangement. So basically, we entered into that contract with them at that time, and it's been in existence since then. It's really up to council when if they wish to have it reviewed. It's an open-ended agreement. But I will say that we've been very pleased and satisfied with the service provided, because we get, like a law firm or an accounting firm, you don't hire one individual, you hire a team of IT professionals. So that's the background on it.
But it could be revisited at any time then?
With the majority of council
The contract, I mean, it could be.
With the majority of council asking staff to revisit it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? Okay, we'll move on then. Any councils have a disclosure of interest? There being none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 9th, 2019. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question now, the protocol this evening was when people approach the mic to identify themselves and indicate their question. I noticed the minutes do not reflect who's asking the question or what the question was, and I'm just kind of wondering if that's for a particular reason, or is that something that?
Okay. Can you answer that, Becky?
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. Our minutes are prepared as per the business of the town that's conducted. So the minutes for a regular council meeting would include the information of the reports that have been presented, what page of the package to find those reports, as well as any motions, decisions at the time, and then at certain times of the year, proclamations that are made. Those are how our minutes are conducted. The Local Governance Act regulates what's put into the minutes. They dictate right in the act that they are to be made without note or comment, and that would include during question period. As you're aware, we're going through our procedural of council bylaw right now. In doing that and doing some research, we have found that there are several municipalities that don't even have a question period during their regular council meeting, and therefore don't have it in their minutes. And it's really hard to find their minutes on their website too. So we're definitely ahead of the game. But as of right now, our minutes are as per the act without note or comment, which would include the question period. Recently, in the past few months, the clerk's office has attended a 3-day session between Robert's Rules and minute taking, and we were in line with everything that is being instructed to us on how to properly do minutes of a municipal government.
Thank you, Becky.
Just one other further point to that. By identifying at the mic, the meetings are recorded, both video and audio. So by recording, if people are listening, then residents or who weren't here, or if you go back, you know who's making the statement and who's not. So the record is there on audio and video as well.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve the agenda. Question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. There are no business arising from the minutes, so we'll move to Southeast Regional Services. There was no meeting of the Service Commission in December, so there's nothing to report. And I'll move on to planning with Ms. Bickford.
Thank you. In the month of December, there were 6 permits issued. So that rounded out the year at 67 permits in total, for a total construction value of $6.2 million. This time last year, we had the same number of permits. However, our value was quite different at $23 million. Again, that was due to a number of large institutional and commercial projects that occurred in 2018 that we did not see in 2019. The Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did not review any applications involving Sackville during the month of December. Staff have, though, been fielding still a number of inquiries and development proposals over the course of the month, which is good for this time of year. As well, we did finalize Bylaw 270, which is the revised subdivision bylaw. That has been officially registered, and the notification of the adoption of the bylaw has went up on the town's website as well. Staff have also been working on doing some road classification mapping in the town, so just identifying the various types of roads that are currently in the town. And as well, you'll see tonight, there will be a motion coming forward for third reading of the Wright and Fawcett project by the Laffords. So if there's any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Bickford? Councillor Evans.
I was quite excited when previously you mentioned that you're working on the new LiDAR data incorporating into a new flood map, and I don't see anything there. I just want to make sure it doesn't drop off the LiDAR screen.
It's certainly not dropping off the screen. It's now down to amount of timing as far as bringing something forward and having a report available to council.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have 2 motions. I'll ask Councillor Black to read them.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 243B, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 243, Town of Sackville Municipal Plan bylaw.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Tower. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Councillor Black.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 244I, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 244, Town of Sackville zoning bylaw.
I have a seconder. Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. With that, we will move on to the reports, and the first up is the mayor's report, which I will present. Since the last meeting we've had, the mayor has been interviewed by both the Times Transcript and the Tribune Post on his decision to not reoffer as mayor in the next election. And he interviewed by CBC on policing survey. He attended events, the New Year's Levy here and the Marshfield Engage program, an afternoon celebration of the end of their semester. On other activities, he did an inquiry to NB Power about smart meters to follow up on the age-friendly in town. And got a UMNB update on files on policing, climate, the dike study, and the railway flooding pilot study. The DTI called about various topics, including the railway pilot study, culvert standards, and confirmation that DTI had no freshwater flood plan for the town. He also met with officials of the Mount Allison Student Union. In miscellaneous, we dealt with the CEO recruitment materials, reviewed and commented on those. Took advice from Mark Jacquard on the round table. I assume that's the climate round table. And had a meeting with the regional high school experiential learning coordinator. So that was the mayor's report. If there are any questions, I will try to answer them, but probably can't. Okay, we'll move on to the CEO.
I just wonder, could you tell me exactly what would the meeting with the Masu entail?
No, I have no idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Worship. My report's on page 20 of the package, and just a few brief notes. Note at the holiday period, it was business as usual, but it was relatively quiet, which was good for crews and I guess good for residents to move around as well in the community. The annual levy was hosted again, as the mayor had just noted. There's a good bit of additional information in the various department reports that is available for residents to review. And we've already done a few final readings, and there's a number of motions in regards to a few policies, mostly of a HR nature this evening. And I guess two upcoming initiatives I'd like to just highlight. And again, there's more information in the later in the report, and corporate services, one being the World Cafe to assist with the town's development of the town's new marketing plan. That's on the 18th of January. And the Mayor's Roundtable on climate change, which is scheduled for February 1st. And that's my report, Your Worship, unless any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Hanrahan. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to finance then, and Councillor Tower.
Thank you, Your Worship. The bills and payroll, the first, and that information is on pages 21 and 22. And before making my motion, if the Michael would possibly give some comment on the great report as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. As noted, the report on page 21. The month of December is a lot higher than most months. It is the month we do our interfund transfer balancing between general government, general capital, utility capital. So the big one being general government. So in general government, there were two transfers that happened. One to general capital, which was $3.97 million. The reason for that is that the money that comes in for our infrastructure programs goes in our general revenue fund. All of the expenses that take place come out of our general capital fund. So at the end of the year, we have to balance those off. And as a result, the transfer happens in December in order to bring those in line. So that made up the large majority of that. On top of that, there was debenture for about $500,000, and then other smaller invoices for power, health, contractors holdback, and things. Utility government as well saw transfers, so there was, within the transfers, there was 120,000 that went to Utility Capital Reserve Fund, 82,000 that went to Utility Capital Fund, and 668,000 that went to the General Revenue Fund. Most of our bills relating to general and utility get paid at a general, and then in December, we balance those off with the transfers. In addition to that, there was power bills and Veolia as well, payment for operating our treatment plant. General capital invoices were Lawrence Street Phase 2, Bridge Street Sidewalk, Stevens Drive, transfer to utility capital of $122K, and holdback releases. Utility capital was very small for the month, and the salaries and wages are on page 22 with noted reasons for overtime.
Excellent, thank you for that. Any questions beyond that, I'd be surprised. My motion on the bills and payroll. I move that council accept the bills and payroll for the month of December 2019 as follows. General government, $4,804,858.79. General capital, $313,761.89. Utility government, $921,998.27. Utility capital, $399.92. I carried away my thousands here. And salaries of $197,999.52.
Have a seconder? Councilor Butcher? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, moving right along to the finance report, which is on pages 23 to 30. The financial statements included to the end of December 2019 as of January 3rd, 2020. There are a lot of December adjustments and entries that are being done early in the new year, and as well as many more invoices that will come through during the January 2020 for the 2019 year. As we progress into January and February, these final numbers will fill in the blanks. Transfer of $225,000 out of general capital reserve fund rather than the original 2019 projection of $743,000 happened in December as approved by council. Also, a deposit into the utility capital reserve fund of $120,000 took place in accordance with the 2019 approved budget. The balances in the reserve funds as of December 2019 are listed in the report. The 2020 budget process was completed for the general and utility budget of December 9th, and the forms have been submitted to the province for approval. Motions were approved as a December council meeting approving our 2020 general capital, which was comprised of all capital out of revenue, including fire department items. This is the first year where we have been able to perform our entire general capital, including fire and capital out of revenue. Utility capital will continue to require borrowing, for which we have submitted the application to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board, and we expect the hearing to take place on February 10th. All transfers from the gas tax reserve account were completed in December, covered our 2019 approved expenses. Water meters were read on January 2nd, 2020, and bills will go out in hopefully sometime this week, in fact, for the period of September to December 2019. This billing will be the revenue for our 2019 fiscal year and accrued in the 2019 accruals. A motion will be presented tonight authorizing a contribution of $1,595.11 to the Regional Service Commission as Sackville's contribution to the Western Alberta Transpo Services. This amount was included in the budget submission of the Regional Service Commission for council's review, and unless council objected during our review period, it became a charge payable to municipality. In 2019, council gave $2,000 to the rural rides, which will need to be reviewed during the grants review, as the Westmount Albert Transpo is part of the rural rides. Lawrence Street Phase 1, final claim and reports have been approved by the province, and final payments of $337,195 was received December 6th. This will end the process for Phase 1 claims and reports, in which we have now closed this phase of the Lawrence Street project. Phase 2 invoices continue to be received and paid, which will be completed by March 31st of 2020. Dog tags for the 2020 are now on sale at Town Hall. Proof of rabies vaccination must be presented at the time of registration. The 2020 tags will be on sale for residents at the regular rate of $20 for spayed females or neutered males until March 31st, 2020, at which time an additional late fee of $20 will apply.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Evans?
First of all, a comment. I just want to highlight something that Councillor Tower read. We have spent over $1 million in general capital projects this year, and we are not borrowing any money. That's really significant. I want to call attention to it. This is the first time it's ever happened, and if things keep going according to plan, it will become the new normal. So kudos to Mike and his team. My question, and I was going to bring it up during the next motion, but it's in your report, and I want to ask you, as a big supporter of this rural rides and WA Transpo business, I want you to explain to me the significance of we gave a grant to rural rides in 2019. We're being billed by the Regional Service Commission for support for this coming year. Could you just explain what you think the problem is? Is it that we should do one or the other, or can you just clarify that for me? Because I want this to work. I think it's a wonderful initiative.
Yeah, so in August, September, the treasurer's CAOs attend a meeting dealing with budgets. So we were presented at that point very limited information on WA Transpo and what was to come forward. We're indicated that more information would be forthcoming at that meeting. At that point in time, no further information had been forwarded. Regional Service Commission had passed their budget and had forwarded on with the 45-day window. The WA Transpo was listed within that budget, and but I had been under the understanding that we were still waiting for more information from them before we would present the necessary motion authorizing the payment to Regional Service Commission. So when the invoice came here in early January, I was surprised that the invoice included that without any more information being forwarded. And at that point in time, I reached out to Regional Service Commission. I got a very clear and blunt answer that your 45-day window has passed. So if you're not going to pay it, you have to, I guess, let me know, and we'll have to talk about it. But essentially what WA Transpo, and I've learned that today at Finance, was through the Deputy Mayor in their meetings, is basically to handle dispatching. So we had given $2,000 to Rural Rides through our granting process in order for them to help offset their costs for Rural Rides Tanchmar. So the WA Transpo, being the dispatching cost, is going to be offset. Is going to help out Rural Rides Tanchmar, Kodiak, Albert, and all of them. So it'll be kind of a dispatching for all regions within Westmore and Albert. I've reached out to other municipalities, Member Cook in particular, who also expressed the same concern at that meeting in August, September, that we give grants to rural rides, and said, well, our grant is higher than what you're going to be asking us for, and that's that was very well explained to them, and waiting for the more information. So I reached out again to Member Cook in particular, and they had indicated that they as well were surprised by the invoice, and we're not going to be given the full grant to the rural rides for 2020 because they're going to be offsetting what they would have given the grant by this and maybe only giving a partial grant. So as far as the recommendation goes for this, it is our recommendation we pay it based on the fact that the 45-day window has surpassed. I will keep a very closer eye on Regional Service Commission budgets in the future for any new things that do pop up so that these can come to council in the appropriate time. And then discussion will need to take place through Matt and Jamie and their group heading into the allocation for grants for granting to determine how much rural rides could or should get. And because I know there is concerns about at times about giving one group funding from two different areas, because ultimately the funding is coming from the town of Sackville for the WA Transpo.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's my understanding that Rural Rides is providing a service and doesn't have, it's not self-funding. It can't operate without grants. And then what the Regional Service Commission did in its wisdom was say that we will support organizations like this. And then they have subsequently said, and we're going to charge the various municipalities to get that money so that we can help them out. So I don't think it's a case of Rural Rides double dipping. I mean, they have come to, they operate on grants. There's a very small fee that they charge, but most of their clients are unable to pay for the service. So that good, you've answered my question. Going forward, we will be able to deal with this, but I just wanted to make it clear that the Rural Rides is looking for handouts. They require stuff, and the acting mayor is telling me that he has something to contribute, and I'm going to stop talking.
I think what we find a little irksome in all this is that they don't come to us and say, we're proposing this, will you approve it? They're saying, we're going to charge you unless you back out. So it's a sort of a backwards way of doing things, which I think, I'll talk to the mayor, but I'm sure we can bring this up at the next Service Commission meeting to see if they can sort of change the way they do things. So, any questions? I call the question?
No motion has been made.
Oh, motion.
No motion
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry, I thought you had.
Thank you. I move that the council authorize the allocation for the Southeast Regional Service Commission for the 2020 budget year as follows on the WA Transpo of $1,595.11.
Seconded by Councilor Evans. Question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, we'll move on.
Your worship.
Yes.
Just want to let people know that the bylaws information is on page 31, and that the animal control report is on page 32. And one special note is that unfortunately people are doing some really stupid things when they leave their dogs outside without any protection from the weather. So I think that we have to find a way to wake people up. If you have an animal, you should be taking care of it and give it shelter. So our bylaws, our animal control is going to be rather busy if people keep this kind of stupidity up. So we ask the public to pressure their neighbors if they see it or their friends. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, we'll move on to tourism and business development, and Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The report appears on page 33 of the package, and I'll just touch on a few highlights here. We're very pleased to have new signs for the Sackville Industrial Park installed in December. We're working now on plans for additional new signs in 2020, including updated wayfinding signs, a new Beach Hill Park sign, and others. We are exploring ways to gather data for trail and park usage. Updates will be provided as we decide on a method to capture the appropriate data. Border Town, that's coming up here in May. will be held May 27th to 31st. Call for community partners has been distributed with a deadline of January 31st. And also, just a reminder that beginning the process of hiring our 2020 students, a call for applications is being issued with an anticipated deadline of February 15th. And all jobs will be posted at sackville.com/townhall/job-careers. Also, it's already been mentioned, and we'll mention it again, a very important event happening on January the 18th. Part of Portfolio's work in continuing on our marketing plan with key stakeholder interviews have been done in December, and the World Cafe will, which will garner public input, again, January 18th. Snow date is January 25th, and that will be happening 1 to 4 here in council chambers. And please, we'd like to see a great turnout for that. The town is pleased to once again be partnering with the Chanchmar Heritage Trust for a Heritage Day presentation at Town Hall on February 15th at 2 p.m. Bruce Wood will speak about the old and new methods on railway in a talk titled All the Livelong Day. All are welcome, and there will be light refreshments. The department will be working to update our tourism strategy this spring. Meetings will be held on March 31st and April 2nd. And please keep checking our website. More details on the sessions will be available soon. And also, we will be applying for a variety of grants for summer students, including Young Canada Works and Canada Summer Jobs. And if there's any questions, I'm sure we could direct them to Mr. Kelly Spurls.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions? No? Thank you. Okay, move on to public property and facilities, and Councillor Evans.
The month of December was the start of the winter control for the season, with several snow events to deal with, as well as rain to freezing rain conditions throughout the month. The engineering department continued to work with Crandall Engineering Limited and Beal & Inch Construction for the final tender of Phase 2 of the Lawrence Street Stormwater Mitigation Project through the month of December. The majority of the mulching and reditching as part of tender 2019-15 ditching and related work was completed during the month of December. The balance of work to be completed early 2020. The engineering department continued to work with Bowser Construction on the sanitary trunk sewer replacement project between Squire Street and Star Avenue. They have worked throughout the month of December on this project and currently have completed the installation of all the new 12-inch trunk sewer mains and manholes. Work will continue throughout January as the weather permits to complete additional site work and culvert installation, with the remainder of the project with respect to landscaping, topsoil, and sod to be completed by the spring of 2020. Public Properties and Facilities has started on the planning and preparation of all 2020 capital projects. The Civic Center was busy during the month of December with practices, games, tournaments, as well as several meetings. 2 Civic Center parking lot lights were switched to LEDs in December. 3 sets of doors have been repaired and or replaced at the Civic Center during the month of December. Repairs to the warming hut at Beach Hill Park have been completed. And now something that I'll try to keep my rage under control, but I have a real problem with vandalism. Vandalism has been reported in Beach Hill Park as the fire department has been called on 3 separate occasions as the outhouse, wooden garbage can, 2 picnic tables, and a shade structure have been burned. These fires were all outside the gate in the park. These fires have been reported to the RCMP and are under investigation. Vandalism was reported in the Waterfowl Park as symbols and numbers were painted in black spray paint on the boardwalk and in the covered bridge and on many trail signs. Staff used graffiti remover on the boardwalks and bridges and removed the damaged signs. This vandalism has also been reported to the RCMP. Several trees vandalized by Hurricane Dorian in Beach Hill Park. The hazardous trees have been cleaned up and more dead or dying trees will be removed from Beach Hill in early January. Thanks to the Public Works Department for keeping the main trails in the Waterfowl Park cleared of snow. No motions.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions of Councillor Evans? Very well, move on to recreation programs and events. And Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Your Worship. Winter programs including 50-plus and primetime aerobics, trailblazers, after-school program, pickleball, aquasize, drop-in co-ed adult pickup basketball are all back underway. Formerly, the Lego program, Grandma's Tiny Tots Playgroup, will be offered weekly, beginning Wednesday, January the 15th, from 10 until 11:30 at the Bill Johnson Memorial Activity Center. Trailblazers after-school program registration is now available. The women's shinny hockey program has had good participation so far, and they expect to see an increase with the new year. The full schedule can be found on the community calendar. All nominations have been received for the Sackville Sports Wall of Fame 2020 inductees. The selection committee will be reviewing the nominations in the coming month. Sports Recognition Night will take place January the 28th at 6 p.m. at the Tanamar Veterans Memorial Civic Center. Please join us in showing support for our young athletes. The mayor hosted approximately 100 guests at the 2020 New Year's levee in town. The Sackville Winterfest will take place on February the 6th to the 9th and will include the Fireman's Carnival, the Town Against Gown hockey game, fireworks, and much more. The full schedule is available on a new brochure, or a brochure that will be coming out, and it'll list all of the events for the 4 days. Community development grant applications are under review and will be presented to council on February the 20th. A full schedule of March break activities will also be made in February. For the library report, due to the holiday season, there was no report available for January.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Have any questions? Okay, we'll move on to public safety, and Councillor O'Neill again.
Again, thank you. Sackville Fire and Rescue responded to 24 calls for service in the month of December, which included 11 commercial fire alarms, 4 motor vehicle collisions, 4 flue fires, 2 structure fires, 1 grass fire, 1 rubbish fire, and 1 request for assistance from Ambulance New Brunswick. The calls for service in 2019 were up by just 2 calls compared to last year, or 2018. It's kind of hard to think of a grass fire when we think of it out there in the winter, but anyhow, I know they were there. I would like to encourage the residents of Sackville and surrounding area who travel to work inside and outside of the community to keep an eye on the weather and to ensure that they have a safe journey. Mark your calendars, folks. It's the 111th Fireman's Winter Carnival, which is scheduled Saturday, February the 8th at the Tanamar Veterans Memorial Civic Center. The carnival theme this year is Frozen in Time. Everyone is invited to join in the fun as costumed participants compete for the many prizes. Doors open at 6 and judging takes place between 6:30 and 8:30. And admission remains 50 cents per person. As part of Winterfest events, our firefighters will be cooking up their famous pancake and maple syrup breakfast on the same day, Saturday, February the 8th, from 7 to 11. The chief also reminds us to ensure that our civic numbers are visible from the street. As always, he reminds us that we should have a basic emergency kit prepared to last for 72 hours. And that is all of his report. If there's any questions, perhaps just go to the first one. Did I go to the first?
Are there any questions?
Yes. Over the 111 years, has there ever been a cancellation? I'm just curious.
Your Worship, members of council, that's a very good question, Councillor Finney, and I'm not 100% sure that I can answer that accurately at this time, but I don't believe so.
Councillor Butcher?
I know I was going to try not to be on TV as much as I could tonight, but I seem to recall hearing that it was shut down or not done during the war. But I'm not positive about that. I just think I know that, but I don't really know that. That's right, I wasn't there.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Policy bylaw. Councillor Black? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh.
Thank you. December 2019 continued the downward trend in regards to call volume. Sackville RCMP responded to 101 complaints this past month compared to 132 last year. Property-related crimes had a sharp decrease following the arrest of key suspects, and this category accounted for less than 10% of calls received. They saw an increase in false alarm calls, but half of them were attributed to a commercial location that had technical difficulties. Related to traffic, which I know is of interest to a lot of people here tonight, there was only one collision in December. I bet we know where that was, right? We're seeing a steady number of motor vehicle driving complaints, and some resulted in charges. There was a number of self-generated tickets issued, many of which were speeding fines. And we also entered into 3 criminal investigations related to motor vehicle operations, and all 3 are being referred for prosecution. And they conducted a number of check stops with a focus on impaired driving detection. In the human resources section of police services, CPO LeBlanc was transferred in late December, and we are waiting on word of his replacement. And there's a constable that has a pending transfer, and that is expected to be received sometime in January. And that's the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Evans?
I don't know if Councillor Butcher knows the answer, but what's a self-generated ticket?
It's self-generated.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question is referencing, I reviewed the report from our CPO, his last report, and I know we're still trying to find out what the next steps are. My question is around, he notes in his report, active adult files, active youth files, where do those land now? And who takes on the responsibility where we don't have that CPO? So I guess that's, things can't wait for another CPO to arrive, depending, right? So I'm just kind of wondering what happens with those.
Okay, Mr. Hanrahan?
Basically, the transfer took effect December 23rd. I met with JF prior to his departure. He indicated to me that he would still be working here in Sackville, at least a day a week. I don't know how long that's going to be. It sounded like he was had more of a regional position or regional responsibilities. There's reference in this report written, I suspect, from Sergeant Gagne of a pending transfer coming. That's news to me. I've received on Monday 4 options for the town to consider in terms of replacing or not replacing a CPO, depending on council's interest. And I'm not suggesting that council doesn't have an interest. It's just that with the lack of information that took place around the CPO, and it's been confusing. The treasurer and I have a meeting tomorrow with the RCMP to try and find out more information, but I suspect we'll be en route to see a CPO hopefully hired and working downstairs again in the near future. Primary question for me is that the CPO left due to the deeming process. I'm sure everybody knows what deeming means, but it's like self-generated, but that's part of the fallout of unionization of RCMP, and apparently the CPO position was not protected in the MPSA, but apparently he was offered the transfer, almost encouraged to take the transfer to go to CPO position in another community. So certainly wouldn't be critical of his decision to look out for his own personal interests, and that's, you know, and he served us well, and we're all disappointed to see him move on, but good for him. I'm just not sure what that leaves for us in terms of an interested person to come into a position that's not protected, and what the position would be set up like in comparison to other CPOs in the province.
Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you. Just something that went through my mind here. I'm sure it was the town of Sackville that was paying his salary. And then I understood our CAO to say that he thought he would be working here 1 day a week. Was it? I'm not sure if that's what I thought you said. Anyway, my question, just rounded out, is that if he's going to be dropping back in here a day or 2 or 3 or 4, do we still have to pay him, or is someone else picking up the bill for that?
I'll let the treasurer speak to the financing, but to clarify that.
Yeah, he's gone to a regional position within the Southeast District, which is under the PPSA and paid for by the province. I'm not expecting any bill for his 1 day a week working in here. If we did not have a CPO, if council were to decide not to have a CPO, the CPO would be staffed that way. Basically, the regional would have a CPO and they would come here on an as-needed basis. Council had decided in 2012 to proceed with a full-time CPO that spends their time in the Sackville area and the Sackville schools and really concentrates on this. So I'm not expecting to be charged for it. I expect that on his transfer date that we would no longer be billed for the CPO, and that he would be paid by the province through the district, just as any other officer who is in the rural and highway district would be paid. But we can definitely, that'll be a part of our questioning tomorrow when we do talk to the head guys in Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll, Councillor Finney.
Ask, do we know specifically where he went? A town, city, a bunch of municipalities?
My understanding is he's working out of Shediac office, but he's working for Southeast District.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to policy bylaw. Councillor Black.
Thank you. The policy and bylaw report is found on pages 43 and continuing for quite some time. It was noted that bylaw number 270, subdivision bylaw, and bylaw number 273, BIA bylaw, both received third and final reading at the December 9th, 2019 regular council meeting. Policy number 2019-02 IT security policy and policy number 2019-03 account management policy were passed at the regular council meeting of December 9th, 2019. Bylaws to be reviewed and possibly revised in early 2020 are bylaw number 262, the street traffic bylaw, bylaw number 236, a bylaw to regulate the use of public parks within the town of Sackville. Policy number 2020-01, Town of Sackville flag policy, was provided to policy and bylaw in October, and a motion will be brought forward at this evening's meeting for council to consider. The policy has been reviewed and updated to align with provincial and federal standards. Bylaw number 271A, bylaw number 271, a bylaw relating to establishing a code of conduct for elected officials, and bylaw number 272, a bylaw respecting the procedure and organization of council, has been amended with the changes provided by council and been sent to legal for review. These two bylaws will be presented at our February 3rd, 2020 special meeting of council. The clerk's office have reviewed several HR policies from the current Town of Sackville Protocols Manual dated July 12th, 2010, and have updated them to reflect current processes. Additions to the policies have been highlighted in yellow. The majority of the changes are housekeeping items and do not change the overall result of the policy. All policies follow best practices and employment legislation. There are new policies, which include scent reduction policy, confidentiality policy, and substance use policy. Upon approval by council, these policies will be implemented into an updated employee handbook, which will ensure that all employees have policies and procedures clearly communicated to them. The following Town of Sackville HR policies were provided to the policy bylaw and personnel liaison groups, and a motion will be coming forward at this evening's meeting for council to consider. Policy 2020-02, scent reduction, 03, hazardous weather, 04, dress code, 05, cell phone, 06, conflict of interest, 07, confidentiality policy, 08, substance abuse, 09, social media, and 10, acceptance of gifts and favors. And that's the report. And of course, I have several motions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Where a lot of these policies just came into council's possession on Thursday, I've started down the process of reading through them. I'm not sure if everybody's had an opportunity to read front to back each one, but I'm just wondering if these really have to be passed at this point in time, or do we have some more options here that we can discuss them maybe more thoroughly in February and pass the motion then accordingly? I find there's a lot of information there. I know a lot of it's housekeeping, but at the same end, if we're revisiting, then maybe it's an opportunity to kind of look at these and say, okay, is this still reflective of the policies? Just, I guess, for example, I think there's some new ones. You said substance use policy is new. I'm just kind of wondering if we need more time to reflect on some of these.
Thank you. Mr. Hanrahan?
I guess the timing's all within council's hands. I mean, from a staff perspective, they've been pretty much followed for some time now. They have been discussed and modified. Their housekeeping in many instances. There are some that are new, as has been pointed out in the report. So it's really up to council. Life will go on tomorrow at town hall, and next week and the week after. So it's really up to council in terms of your comfort level. If you're comfortable with what you see and want to pass it, or if you feel that needs more time and should be referred to future discussion, then it's really council's call. With the lack of a special council meeting in January, February and March is lining up with huge agendas in both months. So it was felt, I guess, by the councillors in the two areas as well as staff that perhaps council could deal with these this evening rather than push them off into potentially February or March.
Thank you, Phil. I don't know, at this point, I think since there's no motion on the table, there's nothing to table or defer or anything. Just as a straw poll, would you care to vote on them tonight or defer them for another meeting? In which case, we just ignore that page of motions.
I think we should delay it to next month.
Delay.
I agree. Should do a motion to defer them.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, we're doing a straw poll. I don't need a mic, but I am not interested in postponing it. I've looked at them all, and with no criticism, they're not substantial changes. The new policies make sense. I don't see a reason to defer it, especially to a month where the calendar is really full. If anybody has a problem with anything in particular, we can discuss that. We can certainly change it in the future if anything arises. But it seems to me that regularly we get presented with stuff and there's regularly a motion to postpone it. And I think that in this case, I don't hear a compelling reason to postpone these things. This is pretty straightforward stuff. And I went through them and I don't have a problem with any of this, and I would like to vote on it tonight.
Okay, I think to make it nice and clean, I think I'll entertain a motion to postpone the motions on our town policies until next month. Moved by Councillor Michaud, second by Councillor Tower. Oh, sorry. Well, okay, I think I'll just call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. So show of hands, please. Those in favor of postponing? 3. Opposed? 2, 3, 4. Motion's defeated. You're on.
I move that council approve policy number 2020-01, the Town of Sackville flag policy, and repeal Town of Sackville flag policy number 2011-02.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Evans? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A show of hands for opposed, please. Councillors Finney and Michaud opposed. The motion's carried.
I move that council approve policy number 2020-02, Town of Sackville scent reduction policy.
A seconder, please. Councillor O'Neill? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Show Councillors Michaud and Finney opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-03, the Town of Sackville hazardous weather policy.
A seconder, please. Councillor Evans? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Finney and Michaud are opposed. The motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-04, Town of Sackville dress code policy.
Second by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Finney and Michaud opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-05, Town of Sackville cell phone policy.
Have a seconder? Councillor Butcher? Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Show Councillors Finney and Michaud opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-06, Town of Sackville conflict of interest policy.
Have a seconder? Councillor Evans? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Finney and Michaud opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-07, Town of Sackville confidentiality policy.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Butcher? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Michaud and Finney opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-08, Town of Sackville substance use policy.
Second by Councillor O'Neill. Question? Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In regards to this, there's a section here that indicates off-duty conduct. Actions of employee, verbal, nonverbal, written, outside of the hours the employer is scheduled to work. I believe that would be employee, but I'm just kind of trying to understand how substance use policy would apply to a employee's conduct after hours. It doesn't specifically say that they were abusing a substance that created the actions of the employee. So I'm just wondering how that ties into to this policy.
Mr. Hanrahan?
Off the top of my head, I suppose if the CAO was using alcohol, drugs, whatever, and uptown in a public space and doing my best dance on top of a table and creating quite a stir and whatever, I expect that that wouldn't be becoming of what you would see as being the manager or CAO of your town, and you might subject me to disciplinary action.
Councillor Michaud? Councillor Michaud?
Not, I guess, would that not fall into kind of like a code of conduct as opposed to, because I mean, isn't this specifically around substance use? I'm just kind of curious about that, that's all, so.
I think it would be all of the above, but discretion has to be applied and judgment in each of the cases, so it wouldn't be a black and white type action or decision on either case.
Okay, call the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillors Finney and Michaud opposed. Motion's carried. Councillor Black?
I move that council approve policy number 2020-09, Town of Sackville social media policy, and repeal policy number 2017-01, Town of Sackville social media policy.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Butcher? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Michaud and Finney opposed. Motion's carried.
I move that council approve policy number 2020-10, Town of Sackville acceptance of gifts and favors policy.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Evans? Councillor Evans?
I see that policy bylaw is in the course of producing our code of conduct bylaw, which would apply to council, and I hope that they will take it as a recommendation from me that we follow the same restriction that is in the, I think it's called the gifts and favors policy for staff. It's something I think we should abide by, but also it would be a little bit hypocritical, I think, of us to say to people that you should behave this way in this regard, but it's different for us. We get to decide. So it's prohibited for staff, and I would hope that the same, this is a policy when it comes to us and we pass our bylaw, that would be incorporated in it. So I'm taking this opportunity to make that statement now before I vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Councillors Michaud and Finney opposed. Motion is carried.
I move that council repeal the Town of Sackville protocols dated July 12th, 2010.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Butcher? Any comments? Question? Call the question? All those in favor? Can we have someone more enthusiastic so I can actually hear it?
Can I ask, where I know we're at the voting stage, but I'm a little bit confused. What is this motion? I don't, do I have this in my package? What are we voting on now?
So at the beginning of the package, it talks about the new policies, and if those policies are passed, the employee handbook, which was put into effect on this date, will be repealed. And this will become the new employee policies and handbook.
So these will get put into the handbook, so we're just repealing the old stuff here? Yeah. Okay, good. Then I'm happy to vote more passionately in favor.
Thank you.
I learned from Councillor Butcher that it's wise to understand what you're doing before you do it, so he's here as my role model.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillors Michaud and Finney are opposed. Motion's carried. Okay, thank you, Councillor Black. We'll move on to personnel. Who's doing personnel? Councillor Black?
Sorry, I just have to find it in my package. Personnel report can be found on page 72 in the package. The liaison meeting was held on January 9th, 2020. During the pay periods of December, there were 36 permanent employees and 1 temporary employee. The grievance on call-out provisions has been referred to arbitration, and that remains outstanding. The town continued to address a couple of staffing vacancies during December, and we are pleased to confirm that Sam Hofflin-Burry has been confirmed in the custodian laborer position effective January 20th. The hiring process for the Public Works Manager and slash superintendent continues. The town received information from the RCMP that was already mentioned tonight that J.F. LeBlanc has accepted a CPO position in Bucktouche-Shediac effective December 23rd. He has demonstrated significant dedication and commitment to the town during his time with us, and he will certainly be missed. We wish him well in his new endeavors. The town will be following up with the RCMP to clarify the opportunities and process to move forward on addressing the CPO vacancy, as we already mentioned tonight. 2 sensitivity training sessions were scheduled this past month so that all of our staff could attend. We wish to thank Melody Petlock from Mount Allison University for facilitating the sessions. Various HR policies were also reviewed with liaison counselors of Personnel and Policy Bylaw, which we just passed, which have been advanced to council for consideration. And this is the first step towards various policies to be incorporated in an updated employee handbook. And that's the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Evans.
I just want to add something to that. It's just that the CAO search is ongoing. We've hired a consultant and they're in the process of receiving applications and handling that process, and they will be reporting back to us in February, but I just thought I'd let people know that that is going on.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Black. Then move on to Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The report appears on page 73 of the package. Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development Liaison Group met on December 18th, 2019. Here's a few of the highlights of the past month. As reported in December, and which has been reported again a couple of times this evening, work on the town's new marketing plan is well underway by Portfolio. Consultants are finishing the key stakeholder interviews and are preparing for a World Cafe scheduled for January 18th, snow date the 25th. World Cafe is open to the public and residents are invited to give their input on the town's positioning efforts and provide guidance for future marketing initiatives. The results of the session will be integrated into a realistic and achievable 5-year marketing plan, which will be aligned with existing assets and priorities of the town. Hope to see everybody there on the 18th. The third meeting of the Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change was held on December 11th, 2019. This provided an opportunity for the group to receive an update on the December 6, 2019 climate strike, an update from the Roundtable's subcommittee on their involvement with the town's 2020 capital budget, review of draft terms of reference for the group, Roundtable updates on various community climate change related initiatives, and finalizing details for the February 1st, 2020 public forum. The Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change will be hosting that public forum on February 1st, snow date's the 8th. This is an opportunity for individual groups, businesses, etc. to present suggestions to a panel of Roundtable members on what the town and or community can do to mitigate and adapt to climate change. If there is interest in making a presentation or making a submission, please contact the clerk's office to register. We want to continue to remind Sackville businesses and interested owners, operators that registration is now open for the Sackville chapter of the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Moncton. The Chamber will be kickstarting a reminder campaign early in the new year, and please contact the Chamber for registration details. As noted in December, the Waterfowl Park Advisory Committee recently raised the potential for the Waterfowl Park to be accredited as a Ramsar City Wetland Site. This is an international accreditation program with a focus on urban areas, and to date, there are no urban areas recognized in North America. The Ramsar City Wetland Accreditation is voluntary and provides an opportunity for communities that value their wetlands to gain international recognition and positive publicity for their conservation efforts. So this is exciting opportunity, and the application deadline is January 31st. And there will be a motion to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary application advance this evening. And there's a link there to ramsar.org in regards to more information on this. Back in the summer of 2019, staff were contemplating some minor improvements to the pedestrian connection between Lansdowne Street and Main Street by the Sackville Curling Club. Most of the trail is finished in asphalt except for a small part near Lansdowne Street, which is gravel. Staff wanted to complete remaining unfinished portion of the trail with recycled asphalt. It came to our attention that the connection is owned by Mount Allison University and not by the town, and as a result, we were unable to undertake the work on private property until an agreement was in place. This is similar to the arrangement that the town would have made in installing the Heron's Watch at the corner of Bridge and Weldon. And I'm just kind of wondering if Mr. Burke could just kind of provide some more information on that, because there is a motion being proposed to sign and seal that easement agreement.
I'll ask you to hold off comments until we have a motion on the table, please.
Well, I was, Your Worship, I was kind of hoping to get some background on this before the motion came forward. Again, as was brought forward earlier, with this information just coming into council's hands this past week, I was concerned maybe council had some questions, needed some answers in regards to this prior to maybe the motion, and maybe the council may want to delay it. I'm not sure, so that's why I was kind of raising this at this point.
Okay, given that we didn't have a special meeting this month, where this information could have been brought forward. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Thank you, Councillor Michaud. I guess like we heard tonight with some of the policies and procedures, not all items appear on a discussion group meeting agenda. I guess that's a process we as a team go through before the meeting, working with the clerk's office and CAO to determine what or should or should not, I guess, be provided a special council meeting to give council a heads up. In this particular case, this easement is very straightforward. It's operational in nature. The town has maintained this section of pedestrian connection for years and years and years. And back in the summer, as we were looking to undertake some minor improvements, it came to our attention that we in fact didn't own it. In order for us to spend money as a municipality, which you people all know, we have to have a legal agreement to be able to do that, or we need to own the property. So we approached Mount Allison. They, in fact, were as surprised as we were that we didn't own it. So they agreed to give us an easement on it, and at the same time, we're cleaning up some of the storm and sanitary easements that are underneath the practice facility on Lansdowne Street as well. So the only thing we need the motion for is for the mayor and clerk to sign the easement agreement. So I guess in cases like this, this is where we really rely on the liaison councilor group. We first discussed this back in the early part of the summer when we first uncovered that the property wasn't ours, and that was way back in May. So we've been working on that since then with our legal department who prepares the easement. We then send it off to Mount Allison. Their legal department reviews it, and then when we have a final easement agreement ready, we bring it to council for endorsement by the mayor and clerk to sign. Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Michaud?
Yep. If there was any questions on the report, but after that, I do have a couple of motions.
Councilor Finney?
Is there a way we could purchase this property instead of giving it an easement?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Finney. We did look at potentially purchasing the property. I guess it's more complicated, mainly because one of the properties is under the land title system and the other is not, so it's more expensive to purchase it. And quite frankly, the easement works just as well for us because it gives us the legal authority to be able to maintain it over the course of the time that we plan on needing it. And that's the cheapest and most efficient way to do it with taxpayers' money, to be frank.
Anyone else? Okay, Councilor Michaud?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the easement agreement between Mount Allison University and the town of Sackville for the pedestrian connection between Lansdowne Street and Main Street, between the Sackville Curling Club and the Bill Johnstone Memorial Park, as well as several municipal service easements on and along the Lansdowne Sports Field.
Thank you. Second by Councilor Tower. Any questions, comments? I'll call the question.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Note Councilor Finney is opposed. Motion's carried. Councilor Michaud?
I move that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an application form to nominate the Sackville Waterfowl Park for the Ramsar Wetland City Accreditation Program.
Thank you. Have a seconder, please. Councilor Evans? Are there any questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councilor Michaud. Okay, we'll move on to new business, and from what we were saying earlier, I think the motions have been prepared about the speed limits on Pond Shore Road. Councillor Tower?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council prepare a letter to DTI and the MLA requesting that the speed limit on Route 940 Pond Shore Road be reduced from 60 kilometers an hour to 50 kilometers an hour to the town limit, and that DTI install proper signage in that area.
Thank you. Have a seconder, please. Councillor Black? Question? Councillor Evans?
This, I'm speaking in favor of the motion. There was a request also about the enforcement aspect. Is it? Oh, it's a second motion. Great. Okay.
Anything else, Councillor Butcher?
Yes, I do have a question. I'm wondering if that is specific enough with proper signage? Are we just referring this request to the speed limit change, or are we wanting signage put back on the perhaps politically incorrect name of the Blind Hill? Right.
Part of the issue, when the signs disappeared, the province was saying there were too many signs along that road. So therefore, they wanted to eliminate the distraction to public. And that is one reason I don't think it should be put in here. I think we should then follow up after we get some input back to have those signs, a couple more put back in the location. That will, yes, exactly. Divide and conquer, basically speaking, but still work in that direction.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Councillor Tower?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council make a request to the RCMP to increase patrols on Route 940.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Finney? Question?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, with that, thank you, everyone. Yeah, sorry.
Just something else under new business, if I could, Your Worship. I sent an email to Mayor and Council here. I'm not quite sure, I think it was last week at some point. And I'm just kind of wondering if we should be approaching, what it was regarding was the fact of potential of the province looking at centralizing laboratories from different hospitals into a couple central points. And one of the operations that could potentially be affected is Sackville Memorial. And I'm just kind of wondering if council should take an initiative here to have Horizon Healthcare come in and speak with us, and maybe the doctors or one of the representative from the doctors come and speak to council in regards to this initiative, what it would mean for the community, and the service that we currently receive through the hospital. I know collection services wouldn't be affected, however, lab results and timing might be. I think maybe it's something we should look into.
I agree. I've scheduled a meeting with the MLA. We're going to be talking about this problem. I've also been talking to a couple of doctors in town who've indicated that if we don't have a lab here, or any of the small hospitals doesn't have a lab, it seriously downgrades the emergency department because you can't get results quickly when you need to. If someone comes in with a supposed heart attack, you want to know right away. You don't want them waiting around. So it's something that's going to be, I think, a bit of a fight. But I agree, if we can invite someone from Horizon here and to talk about it, it's going to be a good idea. And we're also, I know I'm going, I don't know who else is, there's a, Horizon's having a session, I think in early March, about how they should be doing their business, and we'll certainly go and bring it up at that. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Black?
I just had a comment to make to the public just about an event that's happening at Town Hall, if I could.
Sure.
Parents in Sackville received an email from the Minister of Education. Dominic Cardy is going to be here at Town Hall on January 23rd at 7 p.m. for a public engagement, a public consultation, I guess, on transforming our education system in Sackville. So this was an issue that came up a little while ago, talking about Marshby Middle School in Salem and potentially a K-8 school. And so he's looking for any and all comments from the public. So I just wanted to put it out there to make sure that we get a good group of people to come and talk to him about education reform. January 23rd at 7 p.m. He's actually in town all day. He's going to be meeting with teachers, and he specifically asked for no principals or school district staff and no media, because he wants to make sure that he's getting an unbiased record of teachers and their concerns with schooling. But then at 7 p.m. that night, it'll be open to the public. So as many people as can come and talk about this would be
where
great.
is that?
Here at Town
here.
Hall.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to question period again. Are there any questions from first the press? Mr. Work?
Yes, it's Bruce Wark from WarkTimes.com. I have a question about speeding on 940. I too live along there, past Walker Road. From the convenience store on, it seems that a lot of drivers do not respect the 50-kilometer-an-hour signs, and nor do they respect the 60-kilometer-an-hour signs further up. So we've just recently been getting access to the town's briefings with the RCMP. I think we've had a couple of public sessions. I'm wondering to what extent council has raised the issue of speeding and patrolling with the RCMP, because I notice that this issue comes up quite regularly, and I'm not clear in my own mind whether that session with the RCMP is merely to receive the report from them, or whether it's an opportunity for the town to make a strong request to the detachment.
I can tell you when we were doing it the old way, holding them in camera, we would quite frequently bring up speeding and different, different roads all the time, or often, but it brought up reasonably regularly. I would say at least every other meeting.
Because it seems to be an ongoing concern of the citizens in town, and it's a concern of mine, living there. Where are the town limits exactly on 940?
I believe it's up, the Hydro Line.
Hydro line, thank you. I noticed that we are talking about surveillance cameras in the lobby here, and I'm wondering if the town has given any thought, or if there are any plans to post signs on the, letting the public know that that area is under surveillance. As you know, the Privacy Commissioner of New Brunswick and the federal one have both recommended that in public buildings, signs be posted around the perimeter, at the entrance to and around the perimeter of areas that are under surveillance. And I'm wondering if the town has any plans to do that.
Okay, before I answer that, I think Councillor Black, did you have a comment on?
I did. About the RCMP and asking for extra surveillance on certain roads. It's happened not only have we asked in the past, but we often would get reports back saying that they had extra patrols in that area. So I think the RCMP know how to do their job and police the town as best they can. But they always appreciated if a citizen had come to council, or if we heard it through the grapevine that a particular road or section of town there were a lot of speeders. They appreciated that information so that they could, shuffle their work around and get extra eyes there. So anyway, I just wanted to say that we would get follow-up from the RCMP as well on those.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, let's do the signs. Mr. Beal, I'm informed you can comment on that. Will we be putting up public signs indicating the video surveillance?
Yes, we can look into it. I think Todd Kohler, Facilities Manager, had got the original signs that we posted on the exterior of the building. And we can follow up with the privacy legislation just to see what it does indicate. It doesn't hurt to have more signs posted indicating that video surveillance is taking place in the facility, but we can definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is for Councillor Finney or Councillor Michaud regarding the policies and procedures on employee behavior. It's apparent tonight that you had hoped to defer the passing of these policies. However, when that didn't happen, I'm just curious as to the reasons why you chose to oppose every single one of them. Just wondering, I know you had, Mr. Michaud, you had mentioned the substance use policy, you had concerns over that, but did you have concerns over every single one of them?
Councillor Michaud?
Thank you. I guess the thing is that was quite a long list. And as a councillor, when I receive a package on Thursday, and I also work a full-time job, the expectations to be able to digest that and get questions to the appropriate people for the answers that I feel I need in order to make a decision wasn't there. So I couldn't honestly say I could make a decision on any of these policies. If I read them 3 or 4 times over, there might have been something else I read in it that might have helped or created another question. So that's where I stand on that.
Mr. Finney?
I guess I can say the same thing, Katie. As a matter of fact, it's such short time in order to have them first brought to us and then not having enough time to really go over them. It's great that other people who are working with that have the time to turn around and look at them, but they've probably been working on it for some time. So therefore, they can see the relevancy of it. I can't at the present time because I really don't know exactly what is already in place and what changes are being made. So I just like more time. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't have deferred it, as I think our CAO alluded to. I mean, it's not like something that's going to change everything overnight. So we could have waited for another month before we pass those policies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Katie.
Hi, Jan Hurdle. Just a question on page 35, as we were going through the public property and facilities report. The second to last paragraph was totally omitted, and just wondering if there was a reason for that or if that was just an oversight.
Councillor, who read the?
The package doesn't have it,
No, it wasn't read. It was just,
Oh, we often read highlights of these reports. Very often don't read the whole thing.
okay.
We get a separate sort of summary of them, of the points that staff think are important.
Yeah, I was just wondering
Yeah.
if it was an oversight or if it was intentional, or if it was intentional, for what reason?
Oh, it's just really, all the stuff is in here, but in the interest of time, we choose to highlight those things that the staff think should be highlighted, usually in consultation with the liaison councillors involved.
Okay. One other question. I have noticed various comments about the council being transparent and in particular inviting input from citizens, preferably before the vote. And I'm not familiar as to how that should happen. I very much appreciated, we stopped in this afternoon, Mr. Beal said he could give us 10 minutes and gave us 15, and it was greatly appreciated. It was a good meeting, but that's not really a professional way of, for us to approach. There are things that I know will come up on, well, I mean, you're going into an in-camera session. How do I have input on business that we don't know about?
Well,
Or how, what is the,
Well,
what is the policy?
Let me answer the first part of your question first. Usually, January is an abnormal month because we don't have a special meeting ahead of time. Like usually in the first Monday of the month, we have a special meeting which is for information. The public, it's open to the public. There's no question period during that special meeting, but the information is given out on things we'll be voting on in the regular meeting, which is the next Monday. So there's that period of time in there for us to question staff, or if the public wants to ask questions, they can, or send us questions, or things of concern to them. As far as the in-camera session, they are just that, in camera. We are by law not allowed to say what happens in the in-camera sessions because dealing essentially with personnel, law, legal issues or property issues. That's in the Local Governance Act from the province. So we have to do those in private.
So you were saying send questions to individuals, like emails, or?
Sure. Absolutely.
Rather than just stopping in?
Yeah. Yeah, I get questions fairly regularly from people about various matters.
One further clarification. I'm familiar with a scent-free zone, but what is a scent-reduced zone?
Councillor Black?
Becky, do you want to?
Thank you for your question. It's just keeping the health and safety of our employees and the citizens of the town in mind. So it's a scent reduction policy where we're asking staff members to kind of reduce the level of scent that they would be wearing, whether it be cologne or perfume, body wash, those strong scents that would be troubling for anybody who is scent sensitive. So it's reducing the amount. Yeah, it's a scent reduction.
Interesting concept. I would warn you against the reduction of too much deodorant. That can contribute to the sense that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Ms. Hicks?
Thank you. I didn't have to introduce myself. Great. Yeah, I have a couple questions regarding the guidelines for meeting minutes. Now, I understand that you're governed by the Local Governance Act, and I understand that it lays out guidelines, which, and I've read it, which lists basically the minimum type of items which need to be included. But it doesn't say that that's all that should be included, because I've read it. Therefore, it's open to interpretation. In organizations, groups, et cetera, that keep minutes, that follow Robert's Rules of Order, it's generally understood that minutes of a meeting should reflect a general overview of basically everything that happened at the meeting, so that somebody else who wasn't at the meeting or somebody referring back to it at a later time can read through it and say, yes, this happened, no, this didn't happen, whatever. When you're omitting a lot of information which takes place, like the question period from the December meeting, that is leaving out some important information that may be useful at a future date, or to somebody who wasn't there who is trying to catch up. So, and I had noticed that in recent months, in the past 6 months or so, the meeting minutes have been improving. There's been the person's name who asked the question, basically what the question was about, sort of an overview of what the response was. that was totally missing from the minutes for the December meeting. So I'm curious as to why that change occurred at that time. That's my first question. Why did it suddenly stop for the December meeting? Who would know the answer to that?
Ms. Beal?
Thank you for your question. I did look at our minutes for October, November, and December, and just quickly before coming into this meeting. And October, November, and December minutes refer to residents asking questions. No names were given in those minutes that were adopted.
No, I understand that. There have been some months, though, when a person's name was given and they had a question about such and such. I didn't look back through them all. I can't give you the months where that happened, but I have seen it. My next question, though, is who makes the decision on what to include or not to include, bearing in mind that the guidelines in the Local Governance Act are a little bit vague and open to interpretation? Who is it that makes that decision on a local level on what to include and what not to include?
We have an act, we follow the act, council approves the minutes. If council doesn't like the minutes, they want the minutes changed, then they would provide the direction to staff to bring forward what they wish. But, you know, I think you have to bear in mind the tonight's meeting, as far as the regular meeting, it's not intended to receive reports and statements and things like that from residents. It's the opportunity for councillors and department heads to report on the operations of what's taken place in the past month and then to make decisions. As the Deputy Mayor has already pointed out, the special council meeting is intended to try and bring forward whatever information is available at that time, present and set up for the future meetings and when issues are coming forward so that council is informed and they're ready to make decisions, plus the residents are informed, plus there is that opportunity of time of at least a month to ask questions and receive information. So, you know, to me, I guess, and, you know, so that's the way it's currently set, but it's council ultimately that makes that decision on how they wish to operate as long as it's within the Local Government Act. And, you know, if you look at and attend, which you do, many meetings, we all don't speak in perfect English and phrases and grammars and each and every time something is presented. And sometimes it's a half sentence here and a voice over here or a voice over there. And so to try and capture exactly what was said sometimes isn't possible. So I think sometimes it's occurred where staff taking minutes, it's been difficult to try and interpret exactly what the point was. And so therefore, you know, rather than try and interpret that and then to put in the minutes exactly what an engineer may have said around a technical item or not, and there are other staff that can be technical too, not just the engineer. But all of a sudden now the clerk has to become the expert in every subject matter that gets talked, and she better, and it's a she at the moment, but she better get it right because it's now in the minutes and she'll be held to task. So I think that's where local government comes from. That's the system that's been adopted here in the town for some time. There may have been some subtle changes in recent months, I don't know. But ultimately, it's up to staff to produce the minutes, and if council wants a change, then it's up to them. The council procedures bylaw is coming forward, and the council's been working on that now for over a year. And we're hoping that that's coming back in February to look at it. So it's staff's best approach in terms of what we think the council is wanting, and that's how it's arrived at.
And I'll add too, Sharon, that these meetings are recorded. So it's, if
The person writing up the minutes has that resource if you want to double check on what somebody actually said. So it could be included. Once the recordings are no longer available on the website, for example, all you have is the written minutes. So if you go back and read the written minutes and a lot of information is missing, it's not a complete picture of what happened at the meeting. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay. The other question I have refers to, on page 74, mentioning the Mayor's Roundtable, February 1st session. Now, the quote is, okay, I understand people can register if they want to do a presentation or something like that. Then the quote says, it's open to the public for those wanting to watch the proceedings, end quote. So does that mean that the only input from the audience will be those who have pre-registered? Somebody in the audience who may think of something from something that somebody else says and has a question or a suggestion won't have any input? Is that the way that will work?
Yes, that was a decision of the whole roundtable itself, to ask people just to, register. You just indicate you want to say, make a presentation or say something. It doesn't have to be a formal presentation. If people coming to that meeting want to add to it, or they can certainly pass their comments along to any member of the roundtable that'll be there. But I think in the interest of just keeping it sort of on point, sort of reasonably on time, and to not get sort of side stray discussions going on, I think that was the reason the roundtable decided that they do it this way and essentially see how it worked.
Really an open public session then. It has to be pre-registered in order for anybody to get up and even say one sentence. You have to register ahead of time.
Yeah, you just have to indicate that you would like to do that. It's not like you have to fill out a form or pay a fee or anything. It's
So is there a limit to how many people will be accommodated?
I don't know. This is this panel that's doing the work is a subset of the whole roundtable,
Yeah.
and I'm not on it, so I don't know. I don't think there's a limit. I haven't heard of any limit, but I would suspect time would dictate it more than anything.
Is there anybody on the, who would know? I'm really curious about how that will work.
Mr. Burke?
Well, I guess the time limits is dictated to the amount of time allocated for the entire forum, which is from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon on the Saturday, February the 1st. So as the Deputy Mayor indicated, there's an expectation, this was a decision of the roundtable, that individuals would sign up in advance. This is the first time this has ever been tried at the town level, so it's a bit of a pilot project. It's the first time we as the town of Sackville have ever tried to pull anything like this off. So that's the time limit will really be determined by how many people register in advance. And then the roundtable was adamant that they wanted some time at the end of the session where there'd be an informal opportunity for people to mingle after the more formal presentations were over. So if an individual in the audience had a comment or question that they wanted to pass along, there will be an opportunity to do that afterwards. And lastly, in addition to registering to speak at the session, the roundtable is also interested in having submissions. So we understand that people don't like public speaking, and that's fine. So they can make a submission up until I think it's a week after the forum.
So there will be an email address, I presume, then to send those to? That's the way that would work?
Yeah, the email address has been published the first week back in the new year. Everything's directed to the clerk's office.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. We have a motion. I'll entertain a motion to go in camera, and I'll ask council to stay in their seats. This won't be long. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second. Councillor Butcher. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.